Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to your Rangers Review press conference reaction video. We've heard from Philippe, Clement and John Souttar ahead of Rangers' trip to Rugby Park this coming Sunday lunchtime. Joshua was at the training centre for us. First of all, Joshua, how's it going?
Going good, yeah. It was a long press conference. I'm trying to think what happened, Derek. Kent line is I know that's the point of these things, isn't it? Obviously, I think this month, as we've discussed a lot, this month's a big month of what's going to happen. Some difficult games. So not too many angles I thought today. Not too much that was new. But over the next month, I would expect that to change given the significance of the matches that are on the horizon.
Yep, absolutely. We'll start off with the manager. He was asked to begin with any fresh injury concerns. There were players coming back from injury. I touched on it with Adam this morning about we touched on a number of players, and Ross McCausland wasn't included in the Northern Ireland squad for their matches. So Philippe, Clement said, when the guys leave the building, I always get a little bit nervous. It's life. I've been there long enough myself, also going to the national team and sometimes coming back with knocks. So luckily it's not the case. The only one still doubtful is Ross, but he got a knock with us. So the national team was probably also not happy with that. They treated him. It was not good enough to play. He's back in training, but he's not 200% yet. So we'll see in the next 2 days. So in a way, that's positive news, I guess, Joshua. Looks like McCausland the only one that's a major doubt for this one. Yeah. That would suggest that perhaps Tom Lawrence might be annoyed that they never name checked him, but possibly he could be back. And he was quizzed later on, incidentally, on Danilo, Oscar Cortes. This is what he had to say. You guys know that Hadji will be suspended, so that's a pity. Then Cortes will be out for several weeks, so you cannot expect him too fast back. Ridvan is to be back somewhere next week in training. Rabi Matondo later on that week, or maybe the week after, but he's also short of being back with the squad to train. Danilo is training back with the squad. So that is what he had to say on that. So don't expect to... Do you expect to see Danilo being part of the squad on Sunday, maybe?
Maybe. I mean, he was part of some training before the international break. Believe that, you're right, you didn't mention Tom Lawrence, but believe that he has a pretty good chance of making it on Sunday as well, which obviously gives Rangers a little bit more depth in the middle of the park. Oscar Cortes' second part of the press conference, Derek, which comes out tomorrow at 7 o'clock. Saturday at 7 o'clock depends on when people, I guess, are watching us. Clement does go into a little bit more detail about Cortes. He reaffirms that it was a line that came out of our interview with Niels Coppin about the fact that Cortes came to the club without an injury record. He hadn't had a scan or a bad injury, anything notable during his time in Colombia or during the 6 months that he spent in France prior to making the move to Scotland. So he goes into a little bit more detail on that topic. Ridvan expected back next week. That's been a slightly slow process. We know that he struggled with injuries pretty consistently since he came to the club. Rabi Matondo towards the end of next week, possibly the start of the week after that as well. So I'd be surprised if we see Danilo play at all at Rugby Park. I'd be probably surprised if he's in the squad.
Not on that pitch, surely not.
Exactly. And I asked Clement, do you need to deal with that situation differently? Because like so many of these injury situations at Rangers over the last few years, it's not been a simple case of a player suffers an injury and then they're back into the squad. There's been setbacks. There's been frustrations that have meant that it's now October and Danilo's hardly played any minutes at all. Him coming back gives you more options at the top end of the pitch. It also probably allows Igaman to play off the left-hand side at points, which is important given the fact that Cortes and Matondo are both injured at the moment.
Yep. Right. The big news, of course, the manager was also asked about, and we touched on this in the morning briefing about Ryan Kent. This is hot off the news that he has been released from his contract at Fenerbahce, and he was quizzed whether he may be tempted to make a move for him. This is what Clement had to say.
In that 1 year, already a lot of times I don't go into rumors because then it never stops. And it's already busy with all the press conferences with you guys. So, no, I'm not going to go into rumors. Of course, I know the player. And I know already a long time because the moment he went to Rangers, I was in talks with him to get him to Bruges. That moment. But there was a better deal I think, in Rangers in that way. So he chose for that. So I know him a long time, but I'm not going into rumors about bringing in players or not.
So that is what he had to say, Joshua. I thought it was interesting he brought up that time he tried to buy him at Bruges. So he's well aware of Ryan Kent. What do you make of his response to that? And the murmurings that Rangers may be on alert, as well another number of clubs, of course, that might be attracted to thrashing out a deal for Ryan Kent.
Yeah, there's a lot of, I think, circumstances around the fact that Kent, let's talk about the Kent saga in general. Number one, it's not been an issue that's been isolated to him being out of contract. Obviously, even when he was at Fenerbahce last season, it never really took off for him after he initially moved out to Turkey. And the kind of noises and response about Kent in the past have always been going back isn't the plan, going back is rarely the answer. And obviously at that point, it would have been buying Ryan Kent out of his contract. I still think, as it stands now, Clement didn't come and shut it down definitively, but he is pretty nonplussed about rumours in general. He will tend to, I would say, at these press conferences, I don't know if you agree with me, but I would say he tends to be pretty straightforward in saying that he doesn't, when he's saying he doesn't deal with rumours, I think he's expecting that the next following comment will be taken under that presumption, if that makes sense. All that to say, Rangers do, on one hand, Derek, they have a situation on the left wing where they have two wingers in there, neither of whom are fit at the moment. And Oscar Cortes, obviously, that's a long-running saga. So is Rabbi Matondo. I don't think you can count on Rabbi Matondo being fit this season if he's going to contribute anything. We know he can be an impact player. I don't think he's going to be more than that because of his durability. So the question is then, okay, you've got a player who you know he's good, even if he tailed off towards the end of his Rangers career, and there's contrasting opinions about how good a player he was.
Oh, you've went off a wee bit there, Josh. You need to plug your mic back in. The mouth is moving, but I cannot hear.
I think my mic's died. This is when people know it's live, isn't it? Unfortunately, there. What was I saying? Ryan Kenny. You know roughly what you're going to get with him, don't you? Maybe people would dispute that, but you know as a player with quality there. The question in response is he's 27 years old. He wouldn't be able to play until January because he was released from his contract after the end of the summer window. You look ahead to January, Derek, and Clement is still saying several weeks about Cortes, but you'd hope that Cortes isn't too far away from there. I think this situation might be pretty similar to the number 6 situation that we've discussed previously, where Rangers couldn't get their ideal targets in that situation. They couldn't get the marquee signing, and the funds were limited towards the end of the window and in certain positions. If they were to then go and get a 29-year-old who could maybe do the short-term job, does it stunt the growth of Conor Barron and Nico Rask and kill their value somewhat? Equally, if you look at the left wing, and the striking position's the same, Rangers just will not go out and buy a fourth striker unless, as things stand, I believe, unless they're to sell one at the moment and keep that complement at 3, unless there is some variety whereby, Egerman suddenly plays on the left wing consistently. You can't stockpile players in that position. Does it make sense to go and pay Ryan Kent what would be one of the higher wages in the squad when Oscar Cortes is just coming back to full fitness, when it's probably going to be a short-term plan anyway? And this is a player who, towards the end of his Rangers career, things really tailed off and he wasn't the player that he once was. That's how I see the situation. Maybe if it was slightly different and Rangers did need a left winger and they'd be able to offload Rabbi Matondo's wages in a permanent transfer, and this was happening at the end of the window so that Kent could play now, it would be different. But the fact that he wouldn't be able to play until January anyway, the financials, where Rangers seem to be going or suggest they're going from a recruitment point of view, I don't necessarily think that going back for Ryan Kent would line up with that. Yeah,
part of me wonders if Clement would get a tune out of him. I've got to say that. I know he's a fan of him. Different manager. It's all ifs and buts at this moment in time. But yeah, I thought it was interesting his response to that. It wasn't like you say, Joshua, a categorical no. He doesn't, like you say, get drawn in rumours, but I thought it was interesting that he brought up that he knows about the player and he tried to sign him previously. So yeah, watch this space. I can't imagine he'll be short of offers, but whether Rangers are one remains to be seen. Other interesting points, he was asked about the workload. I mean, players going off playing international football, coming back and playing domestic stuff. A lot of football to be played. Another international break next month as well in a few weeks' time. This is what he had to say about the workload.
History of football, there have been so many games, also without winter break or anything. So for everybody in our business, in whatever country that you're working in, for sure for teams who are playing European, because it's a big difference compared to teams who are not playing European football, it's going to be a challenge in that way. So we're working hard with the players to educate them in that way around everything besides the trainings and the moments that they are in the building, also the moments that they're outside of the building and at home, that they take care of their bodies in the best way.
I think he's got a point there on workload, Joshua. A lot of games, of course. I think it's not just Clement that comes out and says this. You'll find players that are starting to come out as well, saying that they're just playing too many games. But for Rangers at this moment in time, a lot of games coming up. He's going to have to utilise the entirety of his squad.
Yeah, busy period. I mean, it's not just isolated to Clement. Obviously, Rodri spoke about it a lot before his injury, didn't he? And there is too much. It's always one of these topics where sometimes John Souttar said this, that the players love playing games, and you'll get the cliched answers about it. If you look at the amount of football that goes on compared to other sports, if you look at the length of seasons, it is too much, and it's also only going in one direction because it's a business, and the people in charge of that and relative countries and companies and football governing bodies will want to make as much money possible from it and take that to the extreme, and injuries obviously come into that as well. Over the course of the next month, from a Rangers point of view, yeah, they're going to have to rotate because of those midweek games. Clement's not really had a strongest starting 11 anyway since he came to the club. It'll be interesting to see what happens at fullback. Derek, I don't know about you, but I fully expect it will be James Tavernier in that starting 11 when Rangers go to Rugby Park on Sunday. Where does Dujon Sterling fit into the next month? When Ridvan comes back in particular, that means that Cashin Weir's is unlikely to play in the left, where he played for the Dutch under-21 side in the most recent international break. So does he come into right back or centre back, and what's the knock-on effect from that? But clearly, Clement's going to have to use his squad. I just think he's a little bit reticent to change his back four because they have had quite a good clean sheet record so far in the Scottish Premiership.
Yep, we'll do our predicted lineups. Incidentally, John Gemmell with the point Derek and Josh would be in your starting 11 on Sunday. You'll find that on the website, John. I've been deliberating over how I get Nana into that starting 11. And of course, like you say, Joshua, I can't see him dropping James Tavernier as much as I'd like to see Cashin Weir at right back. I just don't see it happening. But yeah, there you go. John Souttar also speaking to the press. Thought he spoke very well. He was quizzed on a number of issues, his partnership with Robin Proper, shutting out Ronaldo, and he's also quizzed as well whether he's playing the best football of his career.
The longest spell I've had. I'm 28 now, and I feel like my body's in a good position to play these games, to play every 3 days, which you need to play every 3 days if you want to play consistently for Rangers at centre back. It's something you have to do physically. And I feel in a good spot now.
You also asked him about playing on the right, Joshua, and from his response, he is much more comfortable out there, isn't he?
Yeah, he spoke about, again, what you'd expect, playing at better angles, moving out with the ball on his right foot, and generally being more comfortable in that area, which is what you'd expect, because this is the first time, apart from the end of a couple of seasons ago when Connor Goldson was injured, this is the first time we've seen Souttar on the right in a Rangers shirt for a concerted period of time. If you go back to the start of the season, I still think there's a lot of doubts about him. There was a narrative that I think rightly formed that he made a mistake pretty regularly, whether that be misjudging the ball or the ball getting stuck under his foot. How much of that was to do with playing on the left-hand side, I don't know. Now, it feels like he's the leader at the back next to Robin Proper, and take the game against St Johnstone before the international break. On a good few occasions, it was his pace that covering Robin Proper that was was really important in that game. And it does just feel, yes, he struggled against Leon. I thought the tactical setup of that game meant that the whole defence was pretty exposed against a lot of pace that Leon had on that night, not least on the wings. But it does feel to me like he's probably in the best form of his Rangers career, and the fact that correlates with that really good performance for Scotland as well. It was only his 10th cap, which I was pretty surprised about given he's 28 years old. One of these situations when Rangers signed him, they spoke, I think it was Ross Wilson at the time, spoke at the AGM saying that the comment was they went into the Souttar deal with their eyes open or something like that, because he believed that the club believed that they could resolve his injury issues. You never want to say that is fully resolved, but certainly Souttar is playing at a rate and playing with such regularity that you wouldn't have thought possible a couple of years ago when he came to the club. Still at points would like to see Sterling or Cassim Weirjo maybe in certain European games if Rangers are going to be aggressive. Maybe there's an argument in Old Firm games as well. I still think their pace could be important at centre-back. And Robin Proper has generally done well for me since he came to the club, although that pace is still a question. Souttar, though, is definitely in the form of his Rangers career so far. And I think a big part of that is playing on the right-hand side. Because if you go back to Rugby Park at the weekend, Derek, that mistake on the opening day of last season where the ball gets stuck under Souttar's feet, from memory, it was under his left foot, where he was trying to attack the ball with his wrong side. Yeah. And that was something he had to do quite a lot when he was playing on the wrong side of the defence in relation to being a right-footed player.
Yep. One other point before we wrap up. Clement was asked about, he said it was quizzed, you targeted October, November as a period when you'd see the real Rangers. He says, no, I didn't target that. I said that moment you'll see a better Rangers team in October, November than in August. That was logical. You've seen already a better Rangers team in September than in August. So I said that. He also reflected on a year in the job. He says, I need to be home at 6. It's a difficult one to discuss all of that, what happened in 1 year. It's good that we won a trophy along the way. I wanted more. We were close on more, but not good enough. We had to do, and it's about we. It's never about I. We need to do a big rebuild in the club in every sense, on the pitch, off the pitch. So many things happen, so I'm putting every energy into that, all my energy into that day and night to get this club back where it belongs to be. So the future is, for me, much more important than the past in that way. Now, you can go and watch those press conferences in full over on our YouTube channel, folks, and you can read, if you prefer to read your Rangers review content, you can find both on the website. As Joshua mentioned, there is an embargoed section for both that will be released at 7 p.m. tomorrow, so keep your eyes peeled for that. And Darren gets in touch just on the Kent situation. He says Kent hasn't really performed over 2 seasons. It got to be a no, so he is not on board the Ryan Kent returning to Ibrox train. Right, big thanks to Joshua. We'll wrap up there, and thank you to you all for tuning in and for your support to the channel. As always, it is greatly appreciated. Joshua, you're heading to Rugby Park on Sunday.
Yes.
How do you see that going?
I think it's going to be difficult for Rangers. Again, to repeat a point we've made probably all week, a game like this gives you the opportunity of moving into a crisis mode or real optimism if you can go and get a result. So I think it'll be difficult. I think it will tell us a lot about where they are, and I think Rangers, more than anything, they need points because of where they are in the league. So yeah, looking forward to it. It's a big game to start back after international break, and then Aberdeen away 10 days after. So it's not going to get any quieter for Rangers for the next wee while.
Yeah, let's hope they can go and do the business. Right, we'll speak to you. We'll have all the usual pre-match, post-match content for you on Sunday. So please tune in for that. I'll be back again on Monday, where hopefully we're waxing lyrical and talking about a wonderful Rangers performance. But until then, bye for now.